Guess what? I fucking won again. All 9 felonies have been dismissed against me. For those of you that have been following this story, they arrested me, Metro Police arrested me 1 year ago today.
Wow.
For 9 felony counts of forgery, for alleging that I was instructing CCW courses after the Sheriff's Association had revoked my license, which obviously the Sheriff's Association is just an association, and that's been my problem. But I got arrested, and this was culminating, as you know, because you've been with me from the beginning.
Oh, yes.
It's culminated 7 years.
Whoa.
I've been fighting with them, and they arrested me, charged me with 9 felonies. They also arrested my partner, Ray Walker, who's another instructor that they were alleging I was instructing under, charged with 9 felonies. And so originally, like it was a year, they came, raided my office. They took all my computers. They took, I think, 3 cell phones, 5 computers, just, all my stuff. No guns. They didn't take any of my guns. I still have my permit. Mm-hmm. But I was in jail for 6 hours, and then I got OR'd. And then we were waiting for the preliminary hearing where the judge determines whether there's probable cause. And we said we were ready to go and waiting. And when it came time for the first preliminary hearing where we were going to question him, we were going to hit him with a gotcha, they postponed it. Mm-hmm. Then we waited again, and they postponed it again. They offered me a deal, and I said, hell no. Right? They offered me 1 felony, no probation, and no jail time. And I was like, kiss my ass. I'm not doing that. No. Right? I didn't come this far to tap. So we didn't have that second preliminary hearing, and then they announced they're going to a grand jury. So 2 weeks ago, I was indicted for those 9 felonies. So was my partner, Ray Walker. And we introduced, it's a weird process, the whole grand jury thing. It's not, it's a horrible process, right? There's such a low standard. That's why they say you can indict a ham sandwich, right? Because you don't get to represent yourself, cross-examine witnesses. The DA has to present your argument of why you are innocent of these charges. Our allegation, our defense was the Sheriff's Association may have said I was revoked, but they don't have the authority to revoke it. Only the sheriff does, and the sheriff never revoked me, which is a fact. But the proper procedure would have been Metro had a problem with something that I was doing. They document it, send it to the association, who is the other sheriffs in Nevada. They review it and say, you know what, we don't like this asshole and what he did. I recommend you should revoke him. And then the sheriff would go and write another letter saying, you're revoked. And it was backed up by the association's opinion. Mm-hmm. That's proper protocol. What didn't happen was when they initially were griping at me about using non-lethal ammunition for CCW courses, which is why I got allegedly revoked, I pushed back really hard. And then I know they were like, oh, my gosh, here he is again. Fine, we'll reinstate you, knowing that the association was going to do something, anyway down the road. So they reinstated me. Then the association comes back and says I'm revoked. But the sheriff then never followed up and kind of put a period on the end of that sentence. They never revoked me. So I got them making a mistake. And that's why I did what I did. Because they made that mistake, I felt like, fine, I can push back a little bit more and continue teaching these courses under another instructor because, A, the standards don't say that I can't. And we wrote them a letter saying, hey, is this allowable? Because, insurance providers like USCCA or CCW Safe are selling insurance in the middle of classes. They're not licensed instructors like the instructor itself. And we wrote them about it, and they didn't seem to care. So we developed a plan, not to break the law, but to desecrate the Sheriff's Association and to capitalize on the mistake that Metro had made. So, yeah, we were playing some games and we were pushing the limits, and it was never an intention to hide anything. Like, how am I going to impersonate, Ray Walker?
Yeah,
right? I'm extremely well known. It's not me being vain, but I'm the most well-known instructor in Nevada history. I'm not going to be able to get away with going into a class and saying, "Hi, my name's Ray Walker." Right?
Right.
Wait a minute. Didn't I just see you on TikTok? Like we know you're Nephi Khaliki. So that was never a premise. They initially tried that, and then they walked away from it because it doesn't make any sense. But yes, I intentionally set out, and my instructions to Ray was, look, they made a mistake, and we're going to capitalize on that mistake. To me, this is a chess game. That's all it is. I'm trying to push an agenda, and that agenda is to get the Sheriff's Association and Metro Police to give a shit and to pay attention to the program, because an instructor like myself and all the other instructors, you don't realize this. They play a very important role in a constitutional right. Without a civilian private instructor, people like yourself and the rest of the citizens in Nevada don't have access to that constitutional right under a shall issue provision. Who else is going to teach the class? So it's a prerequisite to getting your permit that you take a class from a civilian organization. So if you wanted to limit the number of permits, you could do so more effectively by limiting the number of instructors. And so I'm going to push on that issue, right? It's an important issue, and of course I'm going to push on that. So when they made that tactical mistake, I came up with a plan to say, look, we're going to capitalize on that mistake, and we're going to force them to the table again, because all I want to do is talk, right? Remember, I'm up against a system that doesn't want to talk to me. All right, I'm the most successful instructor for CCW in Nevada history. Nobody has ever done what I've done, and I can say that with definity. Like 1,000 people in my first class, 600 in the second, 500, 400, and then 4 days a week. Nobody's ever touched that, and no one ever will.
I remember.
Yeah, no one ever will. So when it comes to how they manage the program, there's supposed to be instructor meetings, at least quarterly or annually. There should be regular updates. During COVID, we didn't get one update or, hey, you guys be watching out for this because we have a heavy influx of new shooters. Be up on your safety concerns. There's zero communication from the association or Metro, even during COVID, of, hey, you guys, let's make sure you're doing it right. There's zero communication. It's total radio silence. I've written so many letters and proposals. I created the test in 4 different languages. I created software that would allow gun ranges to check the validity of a CCW permit instantly, which would prevent someone who just lost their permit and didn't turn it in. It still has the expiration date on it. They'd sell him a gun, even though the guy just got charged with a felony. So I had a solution. Didn't do anything with that. We created the test online so you could take it on your phones, and now they could see if the test was working, what questions were failing, where students needed to be improved, which would give them a good metric for creating better curriculum and better testing, right? Makes sense?
Yes.
Right? Ignored completely. We did a lot of things to try and make things better. And what would really upset me was when I went to the headquarters, Metro headquarters, and they were holding the Hope for Prisoners event. And all these people who had committed violent crimes or various other crimes, drugs, whatever it was, they'd all graduated from prison, and they're at police headquarters, and they're playing pomp and circumstance, and the DA's there, the sheriff's there, all these highfalutin politicians are there, and I'm thinking, wow, how is it that they give these criminals this kind of attention and not concealed carriers who are conceivably the victims of those very same people? I was really upset by that. And you know, Kevin McMahill had asked a friend of mine, you know, Tim Bedwell, he's a former lieutenant at North Las Vegas Police. He said, what does Nephi want? You know, because, you know, he didn't want to come into a new tenure as sheriff and inherit all the issues from his former boss, Joe Lombardo. And the answer to that question was, I want you guys to care about us as concealed carriers as much as you do about hope for prisoners.
Yeah, good point.
Right? They're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Right? So these were my issues. And why, when I saw an opportunity where Metro made a tactical mistake, of course I'm going to put a shot through that hole. If you leave it open, I'm going to put a shot through it. Well, they didn't want to admit it. But that brings us up to now we're in court and I get arrested and all that happens and now I've been indicted. So the day before court, my lawyer calls me, John Spilatro. He's a very good attorney. I have much love for John. But he did what I would do if I was in his position, and that was I'd go for the money. And he said, you know, writing a writ of habeas corpus over this indictment and all this other stuff, yeah, it's going to be about 20 grand. And he starts throwing out all these big numbers, which I've been expecting, right? And I felt like I was being walked into a trial because, of course, an attorney wants you to go to trial. You make more money. And I've been hip to this game, right? So I said, well, then I'm going to have to represent myself because I don't have that kind of money. You know, they've shut my $30,000 a month business down. They put my bad hair day photo all over the friggin' news. You know, I don't have it. And then, you know, when he realized that I was, you know, telling the truth, he said, well, you get a public defender just until, you know, you can afford me. And then you can bring me back on. And I'm thinking, if you're not with me from the beginning to the end, you ain't on my side. You know, just an opportunity to make a little money. And I said, you know, well, I'm going to represent myself in this trial. And he's, of course, saying you shouldn't do that, you know. And but tough shit. I'm going to run this shit. People don't realize, you know, your lawyer works for you. He is there as a counselor.
He's supposed to, yeah.
It's my ass on the line, not yours. So I'll make the final calls, right? And I'll always take it out. And you should always run your attorney like an employee because that's what he is. So we get in right before court, and I said, tell Colleen, the DA, and mind you, they assigned the chief district attorney, the chief prosecutor to my case. I said, tell her I'll move out of town, never come back if they dispense with this mess right now, because I already live in Texas, right? I watched him walk up to her and ask her, and I saw her head from behind. Nope, she was not feeling it, right? So I'm like, you know, okay. So we go into court, and now my attorney, John Spilatro, he has to say, I'll no longer be representing, you know, Nephi, and he handed him a letter. You know, it's my financial statement thing, and which was for a PD, for a public defender. I told him I'm not doing that. The judge says, and I'll play this video because it's epic, right?
Right.
The judge says, I've reviewed this application for public defender, and it appears you qualify. I'm going to go ahead and appoint a public defender for you. And I said, no, thank you, Your Honor. And she said, well, I'm going to appoint one anyway. And I said, no, thank you, Your Honor. And I believe I'm within my rights to represent myself in these proceedings. And there was this lull in the whole courtroom. I mean, there's my attorney, my co-defendant's attorney, then there's the prosecutors, the judges, and then the gallery was full of guys in blue. So there's this lull in the courtroom because I just pushed back against the judge not once but twice. I believe it's my right to represent myself, and I'll be doing so. And then there's that pause. And I said, however, I believe that if Colleen and I, the prosecutor, could sit down for 15 minutes, we could have this case resolved today. And everyone, of course, is looking all the confusion in the room about what is happening right now. Because I just fired my lawyer in open court. I pushed against the judge. And then I said we could have this resolved in 15 minutes. And the judge said, you and Colleen go take your 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Now all these lawyers are rushing out there, and Colleen is even confused. The prosecutor is even confused, like, because normally you don't talk to me. See, I just needed to be representing myself for 15 minutes so that I could directly speak to the district attorney. So I went out in the hallway, and Colleen looked at my lawyer. He's trying to sit in on the conversation. The other attorney's trying to sit in, and she's like, wait, I can only talk to Nephi. Everyone else just got pushed out of the conversation. And so I sat down out in the hallway on a bench with the chief prosecutor, and I said, Colleen, I am approaching this under the assumption that no one's trying to put me in jail. And she said, no one is trying to put you in jail. And I said, and I'm also operating under the assumption that they want to be rid of me as far as CCW involvement is concerned. And she said, that would be absolutely true. And I said, I'm not here to make a deal. I'm here with a solution.
Okay.
Right? I said, the only thing that holds up the deal of us resolving this, because my intention's always been to just bring us to the table to talk, which we're finally having a conversation, because she's not involved in all the, the fighting that's happened between me and Lombardo, me and the detail, and me and the association. So she doesn't have, she's never been on the other end of me running my mouth. Right. I said, I'm done with CCW. Trump is about to pass a new law for national reciprocity, which all the states that have constitutional carry, their CCW industry, tanked. It's done. And I would be in favor of it being done. Because you need to understand something, and they'll probably be embarrassed by this revelation. When I did that first class that had 14,000 people sign up, remember, it was Las Vegas Gunfights who did that class. We only promoted it, and I didn't even teach that class. It was just an event I was promoting to try and address a need in the community because everyone was scared. I wasn't intending on running no CCW program. My thing is full contact sparring as a method of firearm defense training in preparation for a real incident. That's still my agenda.
I remember
I never wanted to run no CCW classes, teach classes for 8 hours. I have other things that I'm trying to do. I never wanted to do it. I would have done that class once and went back to doing another promotion, which might have been belly dancing on Friday in my hookah lounge, right? It was just an event I was doing. You know why I created Vegas CCW as a company and I took it to the #1 spot in the state? Because Joe Lombardo fucked with me, and he fucked with my students. If he had just let it go, right? This whole thing, it wasn't taught long enough, was bullshit, right? Because you still have the range time, and the undercover officer that went in there 2 hours late, he didn't get no certificate. That's like saying, oh, the janitor was in the class sweeping, and he came in at 2 hours after the class started to start sweeping. Like, that's essentially what it was. It was bullshit. And then he waited for, knowing he was going to revoke all those applications, he waited until the 2 weeks for us to do a few more hours to make up for it, because we could. And he let him turn in those applications with $100. Well, 1,000 people paying $100 is $100,000. That's a jack move. That's why I started Vegas CCW, because Joe Lombardo's a fucking asshole. That's the only reason. And here we are 7 years later, and I walk into court being charged with 9 felonies. You know why they charged me with these felonies? It's because they tried to revoke me 4 times and I kicked their fucking ass. I still kept coming back. I'd go in and I'd push back. I'd win. They'd revoke. I'd push back. I'd win. I'd win. I'd win. And guess what? I fucking won again. All 9 felonies have been dismissed against me.
Well,
I was given credit for time served of 6 total fucking hours. No probation, no parole, no nothing. I walked out of there yesterday without a fucking scratch.
Whoa.
Because I came to the DA with not a deal, but a solution.
And she listened to you. That's what
She listened. It was the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah,
and that, Mel, is my problem.
What a concept. She listened.
Communicate.
Yeah.
None of this shit would have happened if people would have just listened to me. I'm a smart motherfucker. I know it. I'm extremely experienced and knowledgeable, and I got balls the size of the Liberty Bells. That is just a fact. And anyone can dispute that. Look at what I've been through. Look at the fights that I've fought, and I've taken it to the fucking table on issues that mean something. And here we are, 7 years of bullshit, and I walk away without a scratch. And the only thing left is to deal with the Sheriff's Association. They're the last thing on my list. Their overreach, they're being involved in a constitutionally protected right without oversight from the legislature or the Senate or anybody. See, the state legislature made another mistake. They passed NRS 2023657, giving the association the authority, limited authority, to create training standards for sheriffs to follow. And then the sheriffs then pass that down to instructors when approving them. But under the non-delegation clause of our Constitution and the separation of powers, you cannot grant a private organization governmental authority without clear oversight and intelligible principle, guidance, accountability. The legislature fucked up too. And just the way that Metro fucked up and they forgot to put a period on the end of that sentence, you're revoked, right? The legislature made that same mistake. I filed a complaint with the Attorney General's office, which we all know that Ford is a Democrat. And you're not going to get any help, to a Republican. But it doesn't matter. You got to make a record. Make a record. So I wrote a very, very legally formatted document complaining about the constitutionality or questioning the constitutionality of NRS 202.3657, that it was not properly formatted when they created the law. Again, they forgot the period. And I got a letter back from them saying, we've reviewed and researched your question, and it determined that the Secretary of State is the appropriate place to complain about the Sheriff's Association and their unconstitutional authority. And I was like, whatever, I'll follow the path, right? So I go to the Secretary of State with the same complaint, and they said, we have done our research and determined that the Better Business Bureau is the appropriate place for a constitutional fucking question.
That doesn't sound right.
So look,
right.
this is going to sum it up. So I wrote back to the Attorney General's office, and I said, the Attorney General has the authority to examine constitutional questions when it pertains to the legislature or the Senate or whatever, an Attorney General review or whatever it is. And I said, this runaround with me is not going to work. I have a right under my First Amendment to voice my grievances to my government and to be heard. If you do not take this complaint seriously, I will file a lawsuit under 42 U.S.C. 1983 for violation of constitutional rights, and I will sue your ass. So respond to this email or expect a lawsuit. Guess what? The next day, sir, we have reviewed your letter and we have decided to process your complaint, and you can respond to this person or that person to check the status of this. And all of a sudden, they're doing something. This is my problem. Because having a right to express your grievances, look, my stuff is smart. It's good ideas. It's intelligible. Like, I'm not sending stupid letters to people. I'm sending intelligent information from a desire to make things better. And when you get that, it's like this, the government's doing the same thing that the insurance company is. Like with veterans, they're going to deny your claim as a matter of policy the first 3 times. And only the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If people would just listen and do their fucking jobs for one, that's your job. Me having a constitutional right to express my grievances to the government doesn't mean that I have a right to send an email and they have a right to delete it. No, you need to fucking listen and respond. And this has been my issue, and none of this would have happened. It would have just been one class, and then I would have moved back to the gunfight stuff. But you fucked with the wrong person. Because just as a matter of principle, I wouldn't have even realized how corrupt Joe Lombardo was if he hadn't just reared his ugly head. You know, do you know that our First Amendment right is for the benefit of our government and not us? Think about that for a second.
Well,
think about why it's first. Because remember when we were shooting pigeons on the strip, what was our policy when someone confronted us about, you know, like when the animal rights people would come around, someone might see us, you know, shooting a pigeon off the top of a casino. Our policy wasn't to say, screw you, lady. Oh, no, we're authorized to be here. What did we do?
We talked to them.
And how many complaints did we ever get?
As far as I remember, 0.
None.
None. No,
we shot over 250,000 pigeons on the strip, and
I remember that.
PETA was told, don't respond to Nephi because he'll flip it and he'll double his business, and we helped him do it, right? But so the point of that is, in the First Amendment, our government just came out of a tyrannical situation when they founded our country, and they understood that people who don't get listened to, they start ruining perfectly good tea. They start protesting, they start resisting, they start getting together, and the government understands they're outnumbered. Mm-hmm. So if you don't listen, what happens? It escalates. So the First Amendment, really, our freedom of speech and all the other things, it's really a bleed valve for the government because they know if they don't listen, eventually people are going to start doing shit about it.
That's exactly
and
right.
That's what happened here, Mel. Yeah. I have been trying to communicate. I have been trying to reach out. I've been trying to make things better because I have seen they ignore it. They don't care about this program. And if the Sheriff's Association is going to have anything to do with a constitutional right for the citizens of this state, there better be fucking oversight. We are not going to just let them make arbitrary rules. And it doesn't affect me. I don't care. I never wanted to be an instructor for CCW. I am a gunfight coach. I can't even teach the things that I want to teach people. And that realization that 7 years of me punching in the face over CCW and Vegas CCW, it was entirely unnecessary because I didn't even want to do it. I didn't even want to do it. But it took Colleen, our prosecutor, which if she ever ran for DA or anything else, I would support her. I would support her. I liked her. And when I walked in there, I said, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to compliment her. And I was like, please don't let her be dressed like shit today because it's going to make my compliment false.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But she looked really nice. And that's the first thing I said was, you look really nice today, Colleen. And she said, oh, thank you. And I said, she says, I try. And I said, yeah, I know you got to do it 5 days in a row, though. That's the tough work. If you work a regular job. I was always respectful. And it took a prosecutor and me 15 minutes to solve a 7-year problem. And I hope that they've learned from this. look, my ability to handle legal matters now, I just went to law school over the last 7 years. I've sued them more than any individual in the history of Nevada. I sued Metro 6 times. And, they couldn't get rid of me. But yeah, understand, if I had gone in there, Mel, and they said, you know what, we love this, maybe put me on a committee or help, I would have stopped teaching.
Which would have been the right thing.
I would have done it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to teach 8-hour classes. That's a fucking job. But you piss me off enough, I'll take the mantle if I see something that's wrong. And if they just listened to me and they made things better and cared, none of this would have happened. So I hope that they've learned something from it. Aaron Fink, the sergeant that kind of spearheaded this, is retired now. He said, in the future, if I have to work with you, I'll work with you. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, why didn't you have that attitude before? You know how much headache I've caused these people? People, they'll try to clock out and not think about me, but they do.
Well, of course.
So I wanted to tell you that first, Mel.
Because I've been hearing all the problems in the past. I've known you for a long time, so it's not 7 years. But
well, I had problems before that.
Oh yeah,
with other stuff. And guess who won?
You.
That's right.
No, I remember the North Las Vegas one. When I first met you. It's about.
Genghis Khan said, "May God keep you from the teeth of the tiger, the venom of the cobra, and the revenge of the Afghan." He didn't want to go into Afghanistan. He didn't want the smoke. I don't know. Maybe it's just in my blood. But I do have to still deal with the association. They need to be corrected. And once I get them corrected, I'll leave them alone. They should self-correct. All the time. I'll close with this, Mel.
Yeah.
Our government has come to a point where they will do whatever the fuck they want. And then when someone challenges them, they're going to hire the best attorneys in the state and knock you down through rules and procedures, little technical stuff that you don't know because, it's just minor tricks of the trade. And you'll never get to the merits of the case, of the real issue. And then they knock you back down and then they go right back to doing it the way they fucking want to. Until somebody like me gets a shot through that little tiny window. And I'm privileged because I have experience with the best lawyers in Nevada. I've gone up against them pro se 6 times. And yeah, I got my ass kicked 5 times. Mm-hmm. But I also am making a record, right? That's an important part of it. I didn't really care about those other cases. They were just skirmishes to draw them out to see how they fight. And that proved to be, and it worked, right? I got the Sheriff's Association saying on their letter, "You're revoked with full authority." And then when they get in front of a judge, they said, "We didn't revoke him. Here's our legal reasons why we didn't and don't have the power to do it." What?
I mean, that's, yeah.
And then the third time they got in front of a judge shook her finger at him and said, "You don't have the authority to revoke his license." And they said, "We only make recommendations." And that was the correction. I had to sue 3 times to get them to come to the right conclusion that the association only has the ability to make recommendations. The sheriff, if he would have went with that recommendation and then revoked me with a little letter, I wouldn't have had an opportunity to get a shot over their bow at all. I wouldn't have risked it because I would have clearly been in a violation. Oh, I absolutely intended to violate that standard from the association. What I didn't expect was that they would resort to cheating, in my opinion. They cheated by using their powers to arrest to influence what to me was a professional and an intellectual skirmish. All right? They should have kept it on the field, not meet me in the parking lot and punch me in the face because I just hit 3 home runs. Right? Sportsmanship, try it. Right? To me, it was always that issue. Let's work this issue. So that's the change that I wanted to take place. I wanted them to realize you can't do this. And then they back a little and some authorities over there, they back up And then at the end, they're saying, well, we make recommendations. So in the future, Sheriff Association, look, I'm going to tell you, if you came to the table and said, Nephi, let's look at your ideas and let's see what we could do to make the program better, even with me not instructing, and they sat down with me, and we went through it, because you know what? No one has more experience with these students than I do.
Right.
Tens of thousands of students. I have that experience. My opinion about things should count for something. If they sat down with me and we went through these things on how to make the program better, and they did it on their own, I wouldn't have to punch them in the face. Self-correct, right? I have to do that kind of thing, right? There's no us and them. There shouldn't be. But if you would just listen to me, and hopefully at this point, I know a lot of people are upset. They're going to, what happened to Khaliki? Nothing. I walked out of the lion's den with no scratches. And in fact, it led me to some very important work in Texas. That is, I can't talk about it, but it's important. And everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
Right? I didn't want it to be a 7-year battle, but it's not in my blood to surrender or tap or quit, you know. But in the beginning, if people would just communicate and try and do your job. It's your job to communicate with the public. Who do you think pays you? Talk to them. And that's a problem in this country. I know you and I disagree on politics a lot.
What? Yeah.
Right.
But not.
But what is the solution? What do we have to do first before we can change anything?
Well, talk.
So simple.
Isn't it? Well, isn't it? Of course it is. It's get it out, talk about it, and get a solution.
Like Colleen and I did.
Yeah, but I was just going to say that. Like just happened yesterday. You did. 15 minutes.
It was glorious.
You
should have seen the lawyers in the hallway. Their heads were spinning. They didn't know what was going on. Like, wait, what just happened? Yeah. I don't even understand it. The other attorney for Ray, he's just standing in the corner, just getting wrecked. But Colleen and I got it done.
Which could have been done a long time ago.